Welcome. So today we have author Anna Ellis with us, and she has her brand new book ready to be published. Welcome, Elle.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So you have book 2, Panacea Exodus, coming out now. Last year was Panacea Genesis. And then next year I would assume would be book 3, right?
It's true. That's Panacea Omega. Not Panacea Leviticus, as some have wondered.
I often wondered that. So your book is sort of a dystopian reality, techno, sci-fi sort of book.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay. So what inspired this story, or what was sort of the precursor? What have you read? What are your top 5 books that you have read in the past that have led you on this path to this book or this series?
So let me back up just a bit. And the original inspiration for the story was a dream.
Oh, okay.
This dream, and in this dream there was like the world as we know it, like modern day reality, except that it was in the future. And then there was this other like separate world that was like not modern in terms of technology. And for some reason the idea that came out of this was like there is this time traveler, because the people in the future in the modern world couldn't travel to this other like low technology world because they couldn't remember anything. And so they needed somebody from the past to help them go there. And it just wasn't working. It wasn't working. And I think part of the problem was that the person from the past was like the person who always knew everything, and the person in the future, which is the present in the novel, we're always like kind of incompetent in comparison. And one day I was having this conversation with somebody about the book that I wanted to write, and I realized, if I take out the time travel component, I get rid of some of those issues that I've been having. And at that point, the novel really started flowing. And so, but in the meantime, this was a period of like 6 years or something between when I originally had the idea and when I really started. Like I'd had a couple attempts that didn't get past the first chapter, and so finally I really started working on it. But in those 6 years, there were some books that I felt like inspired me to like really want to do this, to create this story. And one of them was The Hunger Games. Which is kind of interesting because I first heard about The Hunger Games, my niece was reading it, and I was like, what? That's just the most ridiculous premise for a book. And but then I read it and I was like, I really like this. Like I want to write something similar, not necessarily in terms of the theme, because I already had my theme in mind, but in terms of something that people would really enjoy reading. And also, there's some books out there that are really great in terms of the writing, like the writing style. It's very prosaic. Every sentence is beautiful and it draws you in. And then there's some stories out there that are great in terms of plot, and where the plot's really captivating and it sucks you in. And then there's also the books that are really good on character, where you're really interested in this character and what happens to them. Wants to know more about this person and their journey. And to me, The Hunger Games was really good on plot, and it was also fairly good on character too. And it was like, that's the book that I want to write. Like, I don't want to necessarily write like, I guess you might call it like the navel gazing character, where it was all about like the deep inner state of the character. But I wanted characters that were interesting and felt realistic and people wanted to follow. And then I wanted that plot that would be really interesting to people and kind of draw them in, and would have some novelty for them too, like they're learning about this different world and what's happening, how people are living in the future and the choices they've made, in particular in terms of technology. And I didn't feel like I was as good at the word, the writing, the prosaic language part of it. And and I think sometimes I felt like, okay, well, my writing isn't good enough, because I don't have like that really fancy writing. And to me, like one of the things I found interesting about Hunger Games is I think is well written, but it's not it's not like what you would call literary. It's not like kind of like lots of fancy words or anything. And so that inspired me to write something similar, and that like I could write something that would still be interesting and people would want to read, even if it wasn't something that the New York Times was going to say, oh, this is like the best, book ever, it's so groundbreaking or anything. And so I felt like, yeah, the Hunger Games really inspired me that way.
Okay.
Then there were a couple of books that I will not name, but I felt like they were well-known books, and I looked at them and said, I can do better. Like, I don't understand why this book is so well-known. Like, I can write something that people will like better. And I feel like they inspired me because these were books that people are reading and liking. And I felt like when I looked at them, like, I was like, I can do what you're doing and do it better. But I don't want to like, what was that?
Was Twilight one of these books? Great concept, horrible writing.
I really do. I like Twilight and the Twilight series, but Twilight does fit in that category. I think of a book where the plot's very interesting, and yet maybe the writing style isn't like the highest or the most literary. And so in that sense, I do feel like Twilight is kind of an inspiration of a book that can do well, but doesn't necessarily have to be like super what I would call literary, which is with this sort of like high-minded, a very prosaic type of writing, or like novel writing techniques and things like that. So yeah, I guess you could put Twilight in that category. But there's another book that I'm thinking of that was very well received, like won some awards, sold lots of copies. I've heard the author referred to many times in the future, and I read it. I didn't like it. So, and this is the one that I'm not going to mention because I don't like mentioning books that I didn't like. But I feel like that one did inspire me in terms of the sort of I don't know why people are reading this. I'm going to give them something better to read.
Sure.
Yeah. I went through a stage right around the time probably that I got writing again, where I was reading a lot of self-published novels, and I still read a lot of self-published novels. I like them a lot. I don't necessarily have a lot of time to read them. So that's kind of, I guess what I'm saying. I went through a stage where I had more time because I wasn't yet, knee deep in the writing process myself to read these novels. And there was one that I really enjoyed, and it had some issues. Like I think I could swear there were some plot loopholes, so I tried not to think about it too closely. Like there were a couple times when, I didn't know somebody was in the scene, and then all of a sudden you would find them there. I just enjoyed it so much. It was a long novel. I spent like an entire weekend reading it. And I thought, this novel, it entertained me. I enjoyed it a lot. And so I want to entertain people, even if at times maybe it's not perfect. So I feel like maybe I'm not necessarily like doing the best job, like selling my book as being like this perfect book. But I think what helped inspire me to write was looking at other things that people had written that were similar in terms of maybe what their goals were for me, and realized similar to my goals, and realizing that one, that people would enjoy it, and two, that I could probably come up with something similar myself that would still be like.
So does that other book have a title that you're going to share?
The book that I liked was called Portal Jumpers. The most sucked into a book that I had gotten in a long time. And I do want to, there is a caveat there, it's not quite a perfectly written book, but yeah, I really enjoyed it. I do have some other inspiration, not inspiration so much, but like things I enjoy. Like I really enjoyed, Firefly and Babylon 5, really big fans of those. But my book is not a sex novel, and it's not necessarily inspired as much by those kind of big space epic space opera type books either, other than in the sense of, I love that feeling of when you get sucked into a story, and I wanted to create something similar. The other inspiration that I wanted to mention two, they'll probably need some caveat, but when I was in high school, I really enjoyed Pierce Anthony.
Sure.
Do you think he's, one of those who's like good at writing a story that really gets you caught up into it? And I really enjoyed that. Now I find, and this is the only caveat, is I find that some of his stuff hasn't necessarily aged really well. So just, word of warning, caveat there. But I have he was the author that I was kind of like the author that I read when I was younger. And I remember I took a lot of his novels with me to when I went to college, which, probably with the limited amount of space I had, I don't know why I was taking all this stuff, but whatever. My books were important. I needed to have them. But then I got there, and actually his daughter was starting college at the same college I was at the same time. And I remember, instead of being like, hey, I really like your father's books, I really enjoyed them, I was very shy. And so I just stuck the books in a corner.
Did you ever see him when he came? Did he come up for, parent day? And
I just missed it. I liked her. She was not she was more like a friend of a friend. So I don't know. I like looking back. I should have at least told her, like, hey, I like his books or whatever.
Was there one book of his that really stood out that you really liked above all?
No, I do have one in particular. I was like, yeah, I enjoyed that, and I rebought it. But I haven't read it so long, I don't want to necessarily say. But so I did go back and purchase a couple of his books once I got older, and got to that stage where I was like, hey, I want to. I don't have any more of these books that I read when I was younger, either as a kid or as a teenager, that I really enjoyed. I want to go back and see if I can get some of those books and just have them for nostalgia purposes.
Sure. I've tried to go back a couple times to reread, my favorite books as a teen or a kid, and some are okay, and other ones, A Wrinkle in Time. I loved that book as a kid, and went back, reread it right before the movie came out a couple years ago, and I was in a bad mood reading it, but just found all the kids whiny, and I just couldn't. My love for it has lessened over the years, sadly.
Glad you mentioned that, because Wrinkle in Time is one of my favorite books. If we're going on, if we're talking about favorite books rather than more maybe inspiration, right? Maybe inspiration for my love of books versus inspiration for the particular books that I've written. But I have gone back. I purchased that. I went back and read them as an adult. I still liked A Wrinkle in Time. I got onto some of the later books that I don't remember necessarily reading, and I was like, whoa, I don't know about these. But I still like the first one. And I think one of the things that stands out to me about Wrinkle in Time is like Meg was the main character. Mm-hmm. And when I was growing up, there were not a lot of books that had females as the main characters. And I think there were some that I might have missed. Hearing other people talk about their favorite books as teenagers, I realized that maybe there were there were some authors writing about like female main leads that I just didn't know about. But like the nice thing about Wrinkle in Time is you don't get that. You get like a female main character. She's like kind of nerdy. She wears glasses. Like she was really someone that I could relate to. So yeah, I really liked her. Yeah, I don't know. Now I'll have to go back and read it again. I feel like the kids didn't want me, but well, of course now you probably just ruined it for me. Now I'm never going to read it again. Thanks.
I traumatized you.
Another good book like ruined.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time today to sit down with me and talk about some of your favorite and inspiring books. And I will post links to your previous book and the new one coming out, Panacea Exodus, on sale December 20th?
December 20th. Actually, and I think actually the print book and the hardcover may already be released, because on Amazon you can't quite time them like that. But they can also get the print book and the hardcover from my website. And if they do that, they will get a signed copy. And if they want to start at the beginning with Panacea Genesis, which I see you have over your shoulder there, very nice.
Yep.
If you want to start with that, the ebook is now on sale. It was $4.99. We're just down to $2.99.
Excellent. And I will post the links below so everybody can just click on them and order them easily off Amazon or easily off your website and get an autographed copy. I believe mine is an autographed copy. So
it is.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.